Well, when we talk about the transformational power of sports, you have transformed his sport, the world of sports, and now the world of investments and business more than David Beckham. David, really nice to have you with me virtually, at least. You look great. How's life right now? What's life like for you?
Life's pretty busy, I must admit, which I'm very thankful for. Obviously, there's a lot going on, obviously in London for me, and obviously in the States as well. Obviously I've been in Miami for the last 4.5, 5 months, which I was very happy about and excited about, because obviously we've changed a few things within the team in Miami, and obviously bringing in the new coach and a new GM, and a lot of things changing there. So it was a good time to be there, to spend the amount of time that I did every single day in the club, working with the backroom staff, working with the players, working with our new coach, and obviously our new GM, Chris Henderson. And it was great to spend some time there. And then obviously heading back to the UK and being back in London now, and working on the business side and working with my team. So yeah, there's a lot going on, so I'm very thankful for that. But and the sun's out in London, so that makes a change.
So we're going to talk about lots of different things, but given who is convening us, let's talk a little bit about the World Cup if we can, because you have the perspective that you do. The long march has begun toward Qatar next year, folks starting to qualify. What is it about the World Cup that galvanizes the world the way that it does? You have been there. You understand it as well as anyone.
I think it's the general power of sport and the power of this game. Obviously football, soccer has been the biggest game, biggest sport in the world for a long, long time. And it unites and unifies people in a way that probably nothing does. I think that sport does that in general, and I think that that's why I'm personally so lucky to have played a game that I've loved for so many years and since I was a baby. And I was lucky to be part of that and be a professional in that for a number of years. But I've also been really lucky to have played in 3 World Cups. I could have played in 4, but I got obviously injured. But, to have been part of a World Cup, as a young kid dreaming of playing on the same stage as these great countries and these great players, that was my dream as a kid, to represent my country and to hopefully play in a World Cup. And I was lucky enough to have done that. So I've seen how this sport unifies people, unites people. It doesn't matter where you are in the world. It doesn't matter whether you speak that language. As soon as you're either on a football pitch, on a soccer pitch, in the stands, there's something about this sport that just unites people in a way that nothing does. And it brings people together, and I think that that's one of the things that I've always said about soccer, about sport, being around the Olympics, being around World Cups. I've seen the way it changes people's lives, no matter what the world is going through, no matter what individuals are going through. When you're watching a soccer game, when you're watching the Olympics, nothing else matters for that amount of time, and that's why sport is so strong.
Yeah. And so let's take it back down to where you started, which is Miami, and sort of what you're doing there, and how you sort of take your experience as a player, and now, as you alluded to, you're really rolling up your sleeves with this club. I mean, this is your life's work at the moment, at least. I mean, talk about being focused. Help me understand where the club and maybe where MLS is, because, again, that's a journey you've been on from a player now to an owner and an executive.
I must admit, it's been an incredible journey. It's been longer than I ever expected it to be and to take, to bring our team in Miami into the league. And it's taken a lot of hard work. It's taken a lot of stubbornness, which apparently I'm pretty stubborn, so my wife tells me. So it's taken a lot of hard work, but I knew the moment that I started my journey in the US, in the MLS with the LA Galaxy, I knew once I stepped away from the game that was where my legacy lied in the sport in the US and globally, because I always believe that, you know, the MLS is a league that is growing, and I wanted to be part of that. Back in 2007 when I joined, I saw that it wasn't a challenge, because I saw that there was real ambition within the league, with Don Garber, with the people that were involved, to grow this league and to make it one of the strongest leagues in the world. And it has a real chance, and there's real opportunity there. You know, we've seen over the years the amount of teams and franchises that have come into this league. We've seen the players that have joined this league, and there's still work to be done, but we've seen the numbers that are put with the franchises now, the numbers of how much these franchises are worth now. It's grown so dramatically in the last 5 to 10 years that it has a real opportunity. But the opportunity lies actually within the academy systems. That's what we want to produce. That's what we want to focus in. My focus within Inter Miami, yes, obviously we want to challenge on the field in the MLS on the big stage, but more importantly from me, from day one, the academy is such an important part of that, and that's what I really focus on, because I want to be able to produce young players from Miami, South Florida, and all over the league. You know, every team wants to produce young, talented kids that come through their system into the MLS. And then, who knows, they go on and play for their countries, and that's the real opportunity. So it's been an incredible journey, and of course, we're still evolving, we're still a young team, we're a young franchise, so we're still learning, but we want to evolve quicker than, you know, than expected. So I honestly feel that the MLS is now being talked about all over Europe, and it has been for a number of years, and globally. And also, when I've travelled to certain places in Asia, wherever I've travelled to certain places in Europe, I see people walking down the street in a Miami jersey. I see people talking to me about Miami and saying, oh, we watched the game last night. So there is real interest globally in our team, but there's also real interest globally of the league. So, you know, it's moved on very quickly.
Yeah. You know, it's interesting to hear you talk about that decision, because it was not an obvious one in 2007. And I think there's a parallel, I dare say, and keep me honest here, with your business ventures as well. You zigged in some ways when others zagged, or zagged when others zigged, however you want to put it, in the sense that historically, former athletes at the end of their playing careers tended to, you know, slap their names on a few things and take in some endorsements. You've chosen a more active path as really an owner, and not just in the sport, but I'm thinking about things you've done with electric cars, with CBD, you know, with esports even. Why is that? What was that decision for you to be an owner rather than an endorser?
Well, I think, you know, I've been very lucky to have had the career that I've had, you know, to have played for the clubs that I've played for, to have played in the cities and the countries that I've played in, and obviously have also been successful as well. So I think that really I take into my business world. And I think I'm very lucky. You know, I've been part of some great teams over the years, and I also have now a great team within my business. But that wasn't just luck. You know, that was obviously something that I built, you know, 5 years out from retiring, and that for me was an important part of my decisions going forward. You know, when I moved to the MLS and I was 31 years old, I was a Real Madrid player, and people were critical maybe of, you know, that decision, but I realised that yes, I'd played for Manchester United, I'd played for Real Madrid, I was moving as a Real Madrid player to play in a league that wasn't fully established at that point, but there was a real potential and opportunity there, and it wasn't just on the field, which my head automatically says, I want to be successful, I want to win trophies for the LA Galaxy, but more importantly, there was a bigger role as an ambassador for the league and for the sport in that country as well, in the US, and that's what really interested me. Yes, firstly, I wanted to win championships with the Galaxy, but then I wanted to be able to grow the sport, and I think that's the same in my business world as well. You know, there are lots of opportunities, thankfully, that come into the office, that come into the team, that come to me. And it's about making the right decisions. And I have people around me and good people around me that help me make those right decisions. And yes, like you've said, whether it's, Lunas, obviously the electric car business that we've invested in, whether it's obviously the CBD, whether it's other things that we've gone into, we're making these decisions because, I've got a lot of good people around me that, that are working with me on this, and I'm very lucky within the business, but it's come through hard work. And the way I look at my business is I'm the first in the morning, I'm the last to leave the office at night, and that's how I was as a player. As a player, I was first in, I worked hard, I was last to leave, and I got that from Sir Alex Ferguson. He was a manager that had been part of my life for a long time. But I also got that from my parents. My mum and dad were working class. They worked hard. They still work now. So it was instilled in me from a very young age. And I was lucky that I joined a club with a coach that was like that. I then took that into my business, and I also have a team around me in the UK that also have that work ethic as well. So we're making the right decisions, hopefully, and doing the right things. But it also has to be enjoyable. I like to enjoy what I'm involved in, and that's what we do.
And it's interesting, and I would think you would find it interesting too, that this next generation of players, maybe even the next two generations of players, this is a given in many ways, that they will build businesses around themselves. But that wasn't necessarily assumed when you came up. Is that fair to say?
100%. Obviously, I was making decisions probably when I was playing that people were looking at and saying, even probably my dad was looking at, me, but doing the odd, photo shoot for GQ or the odd photo shoot for Vogue and saying, yeah, but you're a footballer. So, but I was making these decisions, not just because there was opportunities coming to me, and actually I enjoyed doing those kind of things, as long as it didn't, affect my playing career, as long as it didn't affect me on the pitch, then that was okay to do. But what I love about this next generation of players is, we talk about obviously the social media, we talk about how important having a voice and being able to make these changes in the sports world, in the world in general. These players like Marcus Rashford, like Raheem Sterling, I think what they've done in the last 12 to 18 months has been incredible. They're using their fame, they're using their voice to change people's perspectives, and that's what I love about what they've been doing. Obviously, a good friend of mine in LA now, LeBron. LeBron is using his real voice to change people and to help communities, and that's what I love about this next generation of sportsmen. They're really using their kind of power to change.
Well, and it feels like fans are emboldened by that in many ways and are drawn to players who do that. And yes, people root for their teams, and I think you see this in your travels, increasingly they're attaching themselves to players who reflect the beliefs, their own belief systems in some ways.
Without a doubt, and that's why sport is so powerful. We talk about it all the time. We talk about obviously the things that have happened over the last few months. You talk about the Super League. I'm not a politician. I don't like to talk about politics. And when I talk about the game, when I talk about sport, I come at it as a fan. I've been a fan since I can remember, from 4 or 5 years old of sports and soccer. So I come at this particular subject as a fan. And when I see things that go on in the sport, I talk about it like I'm talking from a fan's perspective. And I think that as proof of what has happened over the last year, when we don't see fans in the stand, when we don't see people, whether they're shouting for or against sportsmen, that has been missed. And that's why, any decision going forward about, whether it's a Super League, whether it's other leagues, whether it's things that happen in sports, that's why we've realised how important, and I knew this anyway as a ex-soccer player and as a fan, I know how important it is to have fans in the stadium and supporting. And that's why these decisions that get made in sport are so critical, because it changes people's lives and it changes people's perspective. And in sports and in competitions, you want a fair competition. Simple as that. You want to be able to get into a competition on merit, not just because, you're whatever club it is around the world. You want to be there on merit. You want to be in the final of the Champions League on merit. You want to win the Champions League on merit. And I think that's what is important to really talk about.